a little surprise for you. A small surprise to 10 people of you, to be precise. I have a few lottery tickets to give away. And in order for you to get a lottery ticket, I need all of you to stretch your hands like this forward. All of you. Now, the lottery tickets, they are actually taped underneath the metal bar underneath your seat. So, to see whether you found one, you got one, you can lower your hands in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Have a look. I see some happy faces already. Everyone who got one has them already, so you can stop looking now. Now, what happened here? By the looks of it, you all got a little excited. Am I getting a lottery ticket? And for those of you, the lucky ones who have one, there's even more excitement. Am I making money out of this? Am I leaving this room richer than I came in? Well, this feeling of excitement and of anticipating a reward, that is driven by dopamine. You all had a burst of dopamine. Now, dopamine is crucial for expecting a reward, and it makes you feel motivated to go after your goals. My name is Francisca de Beer, and I'm a neuroscientist at the University Medical Center Groningen. Today, I am going to tell you what dopamine does to you and how you can help it to do the dishes. Now let's start off with what is dopamine actually. Dopamine is a messenger chemical in the brain. So in the brain you have about 100 of these messenger chemicals. They are called neurotransmitters, and what they do is they transmit messages from one neuron to the other one. And all of them, they have a different kind of message to give. And dopamine is just one of them. Now, dopamine is made, it is produced in a very central part of the brain, in an area we call the substantia nigra and the ventral tegmental area. This is the ellipsis you see on the screen, because you see a brain model here as if the brain is sliced into half. And from those areas, it is secreted, transported to other brain areas. Now, you all had a burst of dopamine. Now, what happened when you had such a burst of dopamine? Well, whenever something happens that you will enjoy or that it will be important to you, your brain will have a boost of dopamine. And your brain basically says, bingo, this is going to be good. And that activates your reward system. You can think of dopamine as a highlighter, a marker. Whenever something good happens to you, dopamine highlights the environment, the places you are at, and the people you are with, and the actions, the behavior you just did that led up to this good event. And in that way, your brain associates this good event with the places and the people and the actions. And that is a very clever thing of your brain to do. Because that way you can go to the same places and people and repeat your behavior to get the same reward again. Now, this does mean dopamine has to be quick and instantaneous, because only that way this good event that's happening right now is linked to your behavior and your actions that just preceded that moment. You can have smaller peaks, bigger peaks, and you get bigger peaks if that event was a pleasant surprise. Why? Because it was a lot better than you expected. And that is a lot for your brain to update and to learn from this. Now, what gives you this boost of dopamine. You will get a boost of dopamine from everything that you will enjoy or that will be important to you. Chocolate, coffee, alcohol, scrolling on your telephone, or going to a party, possibly getting promotion at work. And on the one hand, these are things that are important to survival. But these are also things that you have learned and experienced over the course of your life to be important and to be good to you. The biggest dopamine peaks, those you get from money and from sex. That's really how we are. And now you also see why this lottery ticket gives you this dopamine boost, right? It was a surprise for sure, you didn't expect it. It was a pleasant surprise, you expected a reward and was even money. And that is because dopamine is crucial for expecting a reward and motivation. Dopamine makes you motivated. Motivated to go after short-term goals, like I want to have a cookie and I want it now and I go after it. Or long-term goals. I want to get my exams, or I want to run a marathon. Now, if dopamine is so crucial for motivation, can't we use that? Can't we put dopamine inside a pill, a tablet, to have some extra daily dose of motivation? Because wouldn't it be amazing that whenever you feel unmotivated to do the dishes, go to the gym, study for your exams, that there is this pill. And this pill gives you instant motivation, a dopamine pill for instant motivation. In the following few minutes, I will tell you why that is a very, very bad idea. And that is because it all has to do with a balance. When dopamine is in balance, it is brilliant, it's very good for you, it's beneficial. But there is a dark side to dopamine when this balance is off, when there is too much or too little dopamine. A very clear example of this is Parkinson's disease. People with Parkinson's disease, they produce too little dopamine in their brain, and they use medication to increase the dopamine levels. And they know all too well how difficult it is to find the right balance. Too little dopamine, symptoms. Too much dopamine, side effects. Now take such a pill. Do we even have it, a dopamine pill? Well, we don't have a pill with the chemical dopamine itself in it. But we do have pills, drugs, medication that increase dopamine levels indirectly. True, they make you very motivated. Cocaine, amphetamine, absolutely brilliant motivation. But there are risks in taking medication and drugs that increase your dopamine levels. And the first of them is the risk of addiction. And to really fully understand this, we'll dive into the brain a little deeper. So on this image, you see two neurons, one on top and one below. And the one on top has these balloons with yellow balls. Those yellow balls is dopamine. The neuron on top has a balloon with dopamine in it and has a reservoir of dopamine. And that is convenient because I just told you dopamine has to be quick. Well, this neuron is ready for it because when it has to deliver the dopamine to the neuron below, yeah, it has them ready. And whenever you have a regular reward, say you're scrolling on your telephone, that neuron on top will release dopamine to the one below and sending its message. Not all of it, just some of it. Now with drugs that increase your dopamine levels, amphetamine, cocaine, they don't give small peaks. Those give massive, massive peaks. And during that time, you feel brilliant, amazing, marvelous, energized, motivated. You can take on the whole world with that peak. But then comes a crashing low. And why? because those drugs have used so much of your reservoir, it takes a while before that neuron has these balloons with dopamine again. And during that time, you feel low, down, unmotivated. You can't get from the couch, and you don't want anything. Nothing is important anymore. And you start to crave. You feel tempted to feel good again, to take another of those pills to feel good again. And that is how addiction can develop. Now, there is another reason of why it is dangerous to increase your dopamine levels, and that is because people who use these drugs, they also may experience hallucinations and delusions. Now, hallucinations is when you perceive things that aren't really there. I hear someone shouting my name, but there isn't really anyone around. Or I see insects crawling on the floor, many of them, but surely there are none inside a theater. Delusions are ideas and beliefs that are clearly not true, but held with great conviction. How they look like? Well, I'm not sure whether you've noticed, but I'm standing on this red circle. There, those text is red, and those lights are red. Red is a bad sign, 3 times already, very bad. Now, you've all been looking at me, which is fine, but there at the back is this man, and he's been looking at me constantly. I don't trust that for the fair bit. I think he is chasing me. I think he's after me. Now, what is the link between dopamine and delusions? Well, dopamine highlights the things that are important to your life, and that way it gives significance, salience to those things. A normal person can become an important person. But now, what if too many things are marked as important, while in fact they're not? The red carpet, the red light, I just happened to see them. They are not important to me. But if they are randomly, spuriously marked as important, they feel of utmost importance to me so much, they must mean something. And then your brain starts to try to come up with reasons of why that feels so. It thinks, well, all 3 things are red, so it must do something with red, it must be dangerous. So you see, those reasons don't necessarily need to be true. And that is how we think delusions may develop. Now, hallucinations and delusions are part of what we call psychosis. And it is true that people who use these dopamine-increasing drugs have a risk of developing a psychosis and psychotic disorders. But also the other way around. People who have a psychotic disorder, regardless of whether they have ever used any drugs, when they actively experience psychotic symptoms, there is too much dopamine in the very central part of the brain, what we call the striatum, which you see in this brain model highlighted in pink. And medication we use for psychotic symptoms, for hallucinations and delusions, called antipsychotic medication, they try to reduce the processing of dopamine in the brain. So you see that this balance is very delicate, and that using pills or drugs that increase your dopamine levels may tilt this balance and may have the risk of addiction, hallucination, and delusions. So, if you want to do the dishes and feel unmotivated, better not use any pills. So, what can we do then? Well, I just told you that dopamine is all about expecting a reward. So, pair the boring task with something you do look forward to. Do the dishes with your favorite podcast, file the taxes with some good music, and treat yourself with some chocolate when you study for your exams. Because over time, your brain will learn to associate these boring tasks with something fun, and that may perhaps make things easier. Now, At the beginning of this talk, I handed out lottery tickets to some of you. And when it comes to lottery tickets, there are two kinds of people in this room. Some of you started scratching right away. You're probably already disappointed. But some of you waited all this time. For all this time, this entire talk, they have been sitting here anticipating a reward. Of all of us, they by far have the hugest dopamine peaks. Tonight, they are the real winners. They didn't hold on to their tickets. They held on to their dopamine. Thank you.